Hello, I'm Nikki.
And I'm Jess.
She's the traumatized.
And she's the abandoned.
And
And welcome
to
our podcast.
where we talk about true crime, spooky things, and everything in between.
And today we're talking about deadly history. I shouldn't say that so chipper. We're talking about deadly history. Da, da, da.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is not chipper day. Are any of our topics really chipper though?
No.
No.
I mean, maybe like myths and legends and mythical creatures.
Maybe.
Those are fun.
Mythical creatures. You did do mermaids.
I haven't
and
done
those can
mermaids
be-
yet. Have I? Oh, I did
you
do mermaids. I did do
Yeah, you
mermaids. That was a lot.
Like, hold on.
We're
Oh,
only
wait, did
on
you
like
not do it?
episode like 46 and I'm forgetting what we've done.
It's okay, I got you. I'm pretty sure I've forgotten some things I've done too. So
Totally forgot that.
I was like, oh, I knew you did sirens. And I was like, maybe you just did sirens. But no, you did sirens and mermaids. Like, because you compared the two. And I was like,
Okay,
whew,
I was
I was
thinking
losing
I
my
hadn't
brain.
done like the conspiracy theories of mermaids because there's like conspiracy theories that they exist.
I think you touched on
Yeah. There's
that
like,
for sure.
I guess I did do mermaids.
Did
Forgot
you
about that.
remember? Way back when. Guys, go
Way
check out
back when.
episode. Don't remember.
Nope. Not even close. Did you see our rotation? I hopefully made it easier to
No, I
understand.
love it. I love it. It's
So.
amazing. I love our rotation. It for those of you who can't see what we're saying. She like literally like, are you gonna move the box every week? Like, are you gonna like do
Yes,
that for me?
I've already
Oh
done
my
that.
god, yes.
They're basically
Stop.
pictures that I just have to insert and take out whichever week.
Can
it
you
is.
put a picture of it in the pocket? Like, are we gonna leave this in there? Like, can
I'll
you
just
show
put a
people
picture of all the
behind the
saved
scenes.
pictures. Of,
behind the scenes?
So
Like, this is beautiful.
Our rotation was just written in a chat in Discord, and I could
Mhm.
tell that it was confusing to Jess. And
It's
so
confusing.
last week I took the time to actually make a Word document type thing to make everything a little bit easier to understand for her.
Now she puts like a box around which one we're doing this week, so it's like I know.
And it's in like the rows that we do them, but also the columns that we follow. So like
Like, okay, even saying that out loud, doesn't that sound complicated?
It
Like, we
sounds
have rows and
complicated.
columns that you have to follow for our rotation. We just like to switch it up. That's all it is. Well, we
Yeah.
found like we had similar topics, but those go on the
Mhm.
rows. The similar topics go on
yeah,
the rows.
so like
The columns we rotate.
yeah, so like for example, disasters and deadly engineering are on the same row because they're pretty
Mhm.
much close together. So
Right.
every time our rotation goes through, we hit one or the other. So like
Right.
one rotation will be maritime disasters, another rotation would be deadly engineering.
Right.
It's just a way to keep things interesting, I guess.
And like
don't
I
know.
think a good one too is like urban legends, cryptids versus myths and legends and mythical creatures. Like
Mhm.
they're very similar, but they're different. So
Mhm.
like they're on the same row but different column.
Yeah.
So, no, it makes sense. It's just it was confusing me.
Yeah. So I fixed it.
At the end of every week, I was like, and next week we're doing
question mark. I was like, you know what? I got time on my hands. Why don't I just make this easier for both of us to comprehend?
I appreciate that so much. So how was your week?
It was good. Yeah. Poked and prodded. I had a bunch of
Mhm.
lab work to get done this week, so that's done. Hopefully I don't have to do that for a while.
Yeah.
'Cause doing lab work sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Although I don't have
I'm
an
not-
issue with like needles and stuff.
I mean, I think that's fair. Like I feel like I don't necessarily have an issue with needles anymore. But it's not like I'm super excited to go get blood drawn.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like it's not like I'm not mortified of doing it, but it's not on my top 10 list of things I'd like to do. Like I'll do it because I have to, but it
Yeah.
doesn't bother me anymore.
Yeah. I just have to watch them try and find a vein that they can poke. That's the
You
issue.
watch them?
Yeah,
Oh
I
my gosh.
watched.
I could not watch. Oh, I could not
And
watch
when-
them.
And
no,
when they like wiggle
no.
it in and out and like press down to get the blood going.
Okay, maybe I'm not even No, with me, they just go straight in. That's what's in my mind, and that's what's happening, and that's it.
Not for me.
Straight in.
My veins,
find it.
my veins are so hard.
My
to
veins
find.
suck.
Yeah,
mine do too. But they say it's better if you hydrate. The problem is usually when I'm going to get blood or if I'm getting an IV, it's because I'm sick.
That's
and
true.
I haven't been hydrating.
I mean,
It's
I drink like 3 of these giant cups a day, so like I'm hydrated.
So you just have bad veins.
have bad veins. Like when I went to get my wisdom teeth taken out, the intern could not find a vein on either of my arms, so the surgeon had to come in and put an IV on my hand.
Yes, when I had COVID, they literally poked. They blew vessels on both of my arms. They blew all my veins, and they had to settle for my hand. And the reason they don't like doing it on your hand is because it bruises so easily. And when I tell you, I had a bruise on my hand, the back of my hand, for like a week after. Like it messed it up bad. But it's literally the only place they can find
the
veins.
surgeon that did mine did like an exceptional job. Like I didn't have bruising or anything afterwards. Like,
well, I had an IV in my hand.
You
for
had
5
it
days.
longer. Yeah, I had it in probably for like 2 hours, maybe. I don't know how long does it take to rip teeth out.
I don't think it takes that long. I don't know. Right, you don't remember.
We're not experts.
No. Anyway.
The joys of wisdom teeth.
Times.
How was your week? Not great. Again.
Oh,
Again.
No, so like obviously last week I was sick and I thought I was getting better. And then my jaw had been hurting like during when I was sick, but it was like manageable.
So
and then
I said that's so interesting that your jaw was just hurting.
And it was like it was because I know what people are like, oh, your jaw. No.
It's
up
like
here.
up there. Okay. Yeah.
It was here and it was back here and it was going all the way down. So it was like up there for people who are listening. I'm pointing to like where your jaw meets your ear kind of like, and then it would go up to my temple. Like it was very strange. And it was like, okay, whatever. I'll just pop some painkillers and, suffer through it. It's just a cold. And then Friday, it got very intense very quickly. And I saw it was taking ibuprofen. Ibuprofen didn't help.
Right.
So then I had to wait 4 hours in pain. And then I took Advil, extra strength. That didn't help. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I had to wait 4 more hours. And finally, Excedrin, the extra strength Excedrin is the only thing that like dulled it. I was still having to have a heating pad. Like it was so bad. Anyway, then Sunday, I didn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
At all.
I think I messaged you around 1 and then
you're like, are you awake?
Are you awake? Yeah, I'm just wondering.
It was Easter, so I was supposed to get up and go like with my cousins had invited me to church with them. And I was really excited. And then lunch, and I was just like, I can't. I stayed up all night. I was like up all night in pain, and it was in between passing out and I'd wake up in this writhing pain. I remember waking up and suffering at like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Jesus.
And I was like, I can't do anything. I didn't know. I was so miserable. My grandfather gets home, he checks on me. Did I end up going to the doctor Monday? Okay, the days are all mixing together.
Yeah, because you answered my message and you're like, yeah, I'm not okay. I'm like, okay, let me know when you are okay.
It's not okay. So Sunday I literally spent all day in bed. I don't remember a lot of Sunday. Antibiotics for 3 days now. Monday 3. They're really strong, but it's helping. I almost went the entire day yesterday without taking any pain medicine. But at the end of the night, I like started getting.
Yeah.
I started feeling it, and I was like, I want to be able to sleep. So I just popped some before. Anyway.
Anywho, fun fact of the day.
Do you want to hear the fun fact of the day?
Yes, please.
Did you know the longest jellyfish on record measured 160 feet? That's more than half of a length of a football field.
That's insane. And I would not believe that if not for TikTok. Because I've seen some things on TikTok, like giant jellyfish.
TikTok has changed us. Changed us.
Has changed us.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the Donner Party.
Donner Party. Okay. Never heard
of
this.
Do you have any idea what this could be?
Donner
Party.
Donner Party. Does it have to do with reindeer?
What? No.
Isn't Donner one of the reindeer?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Well, then no. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So, the Donner Party is basically like a wagon trail that was going from Missouri to California.
Ooh, okay.
And
like Oregon Trail kind of thing?
Yes.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm going to jump right into it with a little bit of background overall together, and then we'll get more specific on the party that we are talking about.
Okay.
So during the 1840s, the United States saw a dramatic increase in settlers who left their homes in the east to resettle in the Oregon Territory or California, which at the time were accessible only by a very long sea voyage or a daunting overland journey across the American frontier. Many believed that they could achieve religious freedom in the West. Others sought to go west for the financial prospect of acquiring land. And of course, when the gold rush hit, people flocked to California.
Right. Yep.
Most wagon trails followed the Oregon Trail.
And hysteria. That's all.
And hysteria. You're not
People
wrong.
died.
The video game was probably quite accurate to the real thing.
Did you ever play it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
I never played it.
Oh my gosh. I think
I
we've
wasn't
talked
allowed
about
to play
this.
that.
What
Are you kidding?
mean?
Are you kidding?
It had no
I was
religion
stuck-
in it.
I was stuck playing like math game. Remember that math game we played? Did you ever play that math game? Was that a homeschool thing?
I played Oregon Trail or Limericks. I think it's called Limericks. They're like the little elf things that you have to get from one place to the other. Oh my god, that was my favorite. All right, so most wagon trails followed the Oregon Trail route from a starting point in usually Independence, Missouri, to the continental divide of the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
Traveling about 15 miles a day on a journey that usually took between 4 and 6 months. Arguably, the most difficult part of the journey to California was the last 100 miles across the Sierra Nevada. This mountain range has 500 distinct peaks over 12,000 feet high, which, because of their height and proximity to the Pacific Ocean, receive more snow than most other ranges in North America. Timing was crucial for a wagon trail to ensure that it would not be bogged down by the mud created by spring rains or by massive snowdrifts in the mountains from September onward. Traveling during the right time of year was critical to ensuring that the horses and oxen had enough spring grass to eat. Usually, a wagon trail left as soon as there was enough grass to feed the livestock. The absolute latest that one could leave to make it before snowfall hit the Sierra Nevada was May 1st.
Said that twice, and I'm thinking it is important.
May 1st.
May 1st.
Another important aspect, or should I say person, to our story is Lansford Hastings. Hastings was an early migrant from Ohio to the West. To encourage settlers, he published The Immigrant's Guide to Oregon and California, which will also come into play later in our story.
Okay.
His guide proposed an alternative route instead of the Oregon Trail's standard route through Idaho's Snake River Plain. He proposed a more direct route to California across the Great Basin, which would take travelers through the Wasatch Range and across the Great Salt Lake Desert.
Ooh. You know what's crazy to me? Side note, I didn't realize, like, this sounds so stupid, just because I've always been on East Coast. I've never realized we had deserts in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's wild to me. I don't know why, again.
I think that a lot of people give America shit, but for one thing that people don't give America shit for is their vast difference in, like, nature.
Climates and stuff. Yeah, because you realize we have, like, the Grand Canyon. We have, like, all those natural forests, like, in Washington, or, like, upper... Like, we have the Niagara Falls that technically, I mean, Canada side's better, but, like, they're, you know what I mean? Like, the amount of, like, national things that you can just go and explore, like, it's wild.
Very cool. Okay, so we're back to Hastings. The thing was that Hastings had not traveled any part of his proposed shortcut. He had simply looked at a map and said, that should work.
Stop. Wait, he had no, okay.
He did make a trip on the shortcut in early 1846, but his trip was from California to Fort Bridger in the east, which means he went from west to east on this route. At Fort Bridger, he stayed to persuade travelers to use his route. As of 1846, Hastings was the second of 2 men documented to have crossed the southern part of the Great Salt Lake Desert, but neither have been accompanied by wagons. Hint, hint.
No. That's so wild. Okay.
So now this brings us to the Donner Party. In spring of 1846, almost 500 wagons headed west from Independence, Missouri. At the rear of the train, a group of 9 wagons containing 32 members of the Reed and Donner families and their employees left on May 12th.
And when were you not supposed to leave?
Latest, May 1st.
Interesting.
This would be only the first of many mistakes that would lead to disaster.
Oh no. Okay.
Although named the Donner Party for after the couple of men who were head of the Donner family, the person in lead of this small group of wagons was actually James Reed.
Okay.
James Fraser Reed, an Illinois businessman eager to build a greater fortune in the rich land of California. Reed had recently read the book, The Immigrant's Guide to Oregon and California by Lansford W. Hastings, who advertised a new shortcut across the Great Basin. So this new route enticed travelers by advertising that it would save pioneers 350 to 400 miles on easy terrain.
Easy, huh?
Other families in the party included the Donner family, Graves, Greens, Murphys, Eddies, McCutcheons, Kesebergs, and Wolfingers, and they would join periodically as they're traveling on the trail.
Okay.
As well as 7 teamsters and a number of bachelors. So the small group initially included 32 men, women, and children along the entire journey. These others would join, making the group a numbered 87.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Within a week of leaving Independence, the Reeds and the Donners joined a group of 50 wagons nominally led by William H. Russell. On May 25th, the train was held for several days by high water at the Big Blue River near present-day Marysville, Kansas.
Okay.
It was here that the train would experience its first death when Sarah Keyes died and was buried next to the river. And Sarah Keyes, if I remember correctly, is James Fraser Reed's mother-in-law, so his wife's mother.
Okay.
If I'm remembering.
Do we know why she died?
She was old and natural causes.
Okay.
After building ferries to cross the river, the party was on their way again, following the Platte River for the next month. Encountering few problems along the trail, the pioneers reached Fort Laramie just 1 week behind schedule on June 27th, 1846. At Fort Laramie, James Reed ran into an old friend from Illinois by the name of James Klyman, who had just traveled the new route eastwardly with Lansford Hastings. So Hastings and Klyman traveled from California to east. Makes sense. Klyman advised Reed not to take the Hastings route, stating that the road was barely passable on foot and would be impossible with wagons. Also warning him of the Great Desert and the Sierra Nevadas, a clear warning that Reed would completely ignore.
Oh my gosh. Why?
Rich businessman thought he knew everything
better.
Yep. The pioneers were met by a man carrying a letter from Lansford Hastings at the Continental Divide on July 11th. The letter stated that Hastings would be meeting the emigrants at Fort Bridger and lead them on his cutoff. So at this point, they're at a cutoff, so they can continue with the big group of train that's continuing on the Oregon Trail, which will go north and then back south, or they can turn here and go towards the Hastings cutoff.
Now, why did they decide to not go with the other people?
Somehow, like, they just let James Reed in charge and they just let him do
just make all the decisions.
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay.
On July 19th, the wagon train arrived at the Little Sandy River in present-day Wyoming, where the trail parted into 2 routes. Like I said, the northerly known route and the untested Hastings cutoff. Here, the train split, with the majority of the large caravan taking the safer route. But the Donner Party, preferring the Hastings route, elected George Donner as their captain and soon began a southerly route reaching Fort Bridger on July 28th. So in the big wagon trail, I think I mentioned it earlier, somebody was in charge of the whole thing. And then once they split off, they're like, hey, George, you're kind of like our president, but like Reed is making all the decisions.
Okay.
I don't get it either, but here we are. I guess you have to have like a captain of the train. I don't know. I don't get it.
Okay.
But here we are. However, upon their arrival at Fort Bridger, they found that Hastings had already left with another group. The immigrants rested a few days at the fort, making repairs to their wagons and preparing for the rest of what they thought would be a 7-week journey. On July 31st, the party left Fort Bridger. Joined by the McCutcheon family, the group now numbered 74 people in 20 wagons, and for the first week, they made good progress at 10 to 12 miles per day. On August 6th, the party reached the Weber River after having passed through Echo Canyon. Here, they came to a halt where they found a note from Hastings advising them not to follow him down Weber Canyon as it was virtually impossible, but rather to take another trail through the Salt Basin. So on this route, Hastings would just leave like letters and bushes and stuff, like telling them this way and that way.
Okay.
Yeah. James Reed, along with 2 other men, forged ahead on horses to catch up with Hastings. Finding the party at the south shore of the Great Salt Lake, Hastings accompanied Reed partway back to point out the new route, which he said would take them about 1 week to travel. So again, Hastings just pointed in a direction. It was like, yeah, that looks okay.
Oh my gosh.
And they took him for his word. On August 11th, the wagon trail began the arduous journey through the Wasatch Mountains, clearing trees and other obstructions along the new path of their journey. In the beginning, the wagon trail was lucky to make even 2 miles per day, taking them 6 days just to travel 8 miles.
Wow. Okay.
At this point, morale began to sink, and the pioneers began to adamantly blame Lansford Hastings, and they also blamed James Reed for their situation they were in. On August 25th, the caravan lost another member, one Luke Halloran, who died of consumption, which is my understanding consumption is tuberculosis, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
About this time, fear began to set in as provisions were running low and time was against them. In the 21 days since reaching the Weber River, they had moved just 36 miles.
Jeez. Wow.
5 days later, on August 30th, the group began to cross the Great Salt Lake Desert, believing the trek would take only 2 days. According to Hastings.
Well, who had looked at it on a map?
However, what they didn't know was that the desert sand was moist and deep, where wagons quickly got bogged down, severely slowing their progress. On the 3rd day in the desert, their water supply was nearly exhausted, and some of Reed's oxen ran away just because of thirst.
Right.
When they finally reached the end of the grueling desert, 5 days later, on September 4th, the immigrants rested near the base of Pilot Peak for several days. On their 80-mile journey through the Salt Lake Desert, they had lost a total of 32 oxen, and that's kind of like their food source as well as like they're pulling the wagons and shit.
Yikes.
Reed was forced to abandon 2 of his wagons, and the Donners, as well as a man named Louis Kesseberg, lost 1 wagon each. So from September 10th through the 25th, the party followed the trail into Nevada around the Ruby Mountains, finally reaching the Humboldt River on September 26th. It was here that the new trail met up with Hastings' original path.
Okay.
So the new path that they had just traveled had actually added an extra 125 miles to the journey.
Whoops.
That's, yeah,
Yikes.
you can use that word.
Yikes. That's insane.
And soon the Donner Party reached the junction to get back on the original California trail. Though at this point, tempers within the party were very short. Everyone hated everyone.
Duh. You just added what did you say? 125 miles?
And they had to trek through a desert.
And they lost how many oxen? Yeah, morale is probably not the best. Fair.
Yeah. On October 5th at Iron Point, 2 wagons became entangled, and John Snyder, a teamster of one of the wagons, began to whip his oxen. Infuriated by the teamster's treatment of the oxen, James Reed ordered the man to stop, and when he wouldn't, Reed grabbed his knife and stabbed the teamster in the stomach, killing him. Now, there is another version of the story where the teamster was, hitting the oxen. James Reed told him to stop, and the teamster turned around and hit Reed with the whip, and that's what prompted him to stab him in the stomach. Either way, he killed the dude.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Donner Party wasted no time in administering their own justice. The group voted to banish him. With only a horse, Reed was seen riding off to what would seem his death. It was basically a death warrant because he had nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Though it is said that one of his daughters snuck out of the camp at night and gave him some food and a gun. So
that's still,
yeah. You're on your own, buddy.
Yeah, good luck. Well, I mean, he did kill somebody.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's his fault they're in this situation in the first place.
They probably weren't the happiest with him anyway.
So the Donner Party continued to travel along the Humboldt River and their remaining draft animals exhausted. To spare the animals, anyone who could walk. So at this point, they're not riding in the wagons to make sure that the animals can carry them.
That's fair.
The terrible ordeals of the caravan continued to mount when October 12th, their oxen were attacked by Paiute Native Americans, killing 21 of them with poison-dipped arrows. Further depleting their draft animals.
I'm not saying kill the people, but the oxen didn't do anything.
I don't know. I mean, that's just they're in their land. They're protecting their land. Which
is why I said, why the oxen? They didn't do anything.
I don't know. I'm not.
The oxen are pure in this.
Now they were really low on food.
Yeah.
On October 16th, they reached the gateway to the Sierra Nevada on the Truckee River, present-day Reno, almost completely depleted of their food supplies. Miraculously, just 3 days later, on October 19th, one of the men the party had sent on to Fort Sutter, Charles Stanton, returned laden with 7 mules loaded with beef and flour.
Nice. Okay.
2 Native American guides, which we'll talk about later, and news of a clear but difficult path through the Sierra Nevada. The caravan camped for about 5 days, 50 miles from the summit, resting their oxen for the final push. This decision to delay their departure was yet one more of many that would lead to their tragedy.
Oh, but they're so close.
They are so close.
They're so close. No.
On October 28th, an exhausted James Reed arrived at Sutter's Fort. He lived.
No.
Oh, just you wait.
No.
Oh, just you wait.
No.
Where he met William McCutcheon, now recovered. So I kind of skipped some parts because this is a very long story. But McCutcheon was sent with Charles Stanton. So those two were the ones to go get the extra food and stuff, but McCutcheon got injured or somehow, and so he was resting at the fort while Charles Stanton went back to the party. And so James Reed arrives at Sutter's Fort where he sees William, who is now recovered, and the 2 men begin preparations to go back for their families.
Okay.
In the meantime, while the wagon train continued to the base of the summit, George Donner's wagon axle broke and he fell behind the rest of the party. 22 people consisting of the Donner family and their hired men stayed behind while the wagon was repaired. Unfortunately, while cutting the timber for a new axle, the chisel slipped and Donner cut his hand badly, causing the group to fall further behind.
Oh no. Okay.
As the rest,
I thought it was gonna cut his hand off. So
no,
at least he didn't
cut.
do that. Okay.
As the rest of the party continued to what is now known as Donner's Lake, snow began to fall. Stanton and the 2 Native Americans who were traveling ahead made it as far as the summit but could go no further. Hopeless, they retracted their steps where 5 feet of new snow had already fallen.
This is why you don't leave past a certain day.
At the lake stood one existing cabin, and realizing they were stranded, the group built 2 more cabins, sheltering 59 people in hopes that the early snow would melt, allowing them to continue their travels. The 22 people with the Donners were about 6 miles behind at Alder Creek. Hastily, as the snow continued, the party built 3 shelters from tents, quilts, buffalo robes, and pretty much anything they had, and brush to protect themselves from the harsh conditions.
See, this is why they said not to leave past May 1st, right? Because what they did, they left like, was it 12 days late?
Yeah, May 12th.
And look how close they got. Like,
you also had to remember the Hastings cutoffs
added 125 miles, right?
So much time to their journey.
That's so true.
Wasn't necessary. So at Donner Lake, 2 more attempts were made to get over the pass in 20 feet of snow until they finally realized they were snowbound for the winter. Over the next 4 months, the remaining men, women, and children would huddle together in cabins and makeshift tents. Meanwhile, Reed and the other man had headed back up the mountains attempting to rescue their stranded companions, but after just 2 days, they had to turn back around and get more provisions and more men. But when they returned, they found out that the Mexican-American War had broken out, drawing away all able-bodied men. Thinking that the group had enough food to last them through the winter, and Reed being a decorated war veteran, he took off and joined the war effort.
What? Nah, they'll be fine.
They'll be fine. My family's not gonna starve.
Oh my God.
Reed being the wonderful man that he is, just like up and left.
Gosh. Well, join the war effort, because there's nothing more important going on right now.
Nope.
Okay. Anyway, Reed.
On Thanksgiving, it began to snow again, and the pioneers at Donner Lake killed the last of their oxen for food on November 29th.
Yikes.
Many of their animals, including Sutter's mules, had wandered off into the storms and their bodies were lost under the snow.
You don't tie them up? Guys, come on. What the heck? Wandered off.
A few days later, their last few cattle were slaughtered for food, and the party began eating boiled hides, twigs, bones, and bark.
Oh no.
Basically anything. Yeah.
Oh no.
Some of the men tried to hunt with little success. After 2 men died, Franklin Graves fashioned 14 pairs of snowshoes out of the ox bows and hide. And on December 16th, a party of 17 men, women, and children set out on foot in an attempt to cross the mountain pass to get help.
Oh gosh. Okay.
This group would become known as the Forlorn Hope.
Okay.
They packed lightly, taking what had become 6 days' rations, a rifle, a blanket each, a hatchet, and some pistols, hoping to make their way to Bear Valley.
How far away were they? Did we talk about it? Because I know they're close. I was just wondering.
They're literally, basically, all they have to do is go over the mountains.
That's what I thought. I just didn't know like how long of a trek that would be.
Nowadays, it would take an hour and 32 minutes, probably driving. But it says 97.9 miles.
Okay.
They're freaking close. That's all I know. Stuck in a blizzard and desperate.
No.
Like I said, they put on these snowshoes, packed up what they could, and took off. Along with the party members in this group were the 2 Native American guides that I said earlier, who are Salvador and Lewis, who didn't speak much English, but they kind of knew the area, although they didn't really travel this area during this time, so they were also kind of struggling to get their bearings, you know, because it would be crazy enough to travel the Sierra Nevada in winter.
Who would be?
So the snowshoes proved to be awkward but effective on the arduous climb.
That's good.
The party members were not accustomed to camping in the snow and they were practically starving. Also, many became snow blind, which I don't know if you know what that is. It's basically they have no protection from like the sun for their eyes. So the sun's rays are bouncing off the bright white snow and into their eyeballs, basically blinding them as if you were looking at the sun itself.
Oh my gosh. Yikes. Okay.
On the morning of December 21st, Charles Stanton had been straggling for several days and he remained behind.
Oh no.
So saying he would follow shortly. So basically he was suffering from snow blindness. And so he was straggling and he finally caught up to the party when they were leaving and he's like, yeah, just go ahead. I'll catch up again. He never caught up and his remains were found in that location the following year.
Oh, wow.
So it's at this point the group became lost and confused. After 2 more days without food, Patrick Dolan proposed one of them should volunteer to die in order to feed the others.
Oh, no. Well,
Some suggested a duel, while another account describes an attempt to create a lottery to choose a member to sacrifice.
That's wild. Oh, no. Okay.
A blizzard forced the group to a halt. Antonio, the animal handler, was the first to die.
Oh, no.
Franklin Graves was the next casualty. Also, Patrick Dolan, suffering from hypothermia, though they didn't know what the heck that was at the time, began to strip his clothes and ran into the woods, because that's one of the final symptoms of hypothermia, where people start stripping their clothes and running. He did return a short time later and died. Do you remember that Snapchat I sent you of the big red letters in my story?
Yes, you were like, guess what? Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
And that's when the cannibalism started.
Oh, no.
Shout out to last podcast on the left.
That's funny. You're like, guess what's blurted out? I was like, I said a lot of things. Cannibalism was not one of them.
No, it wasn't?
It was not one of them. No.
Some of the group began to eat the flesh from Dolan's body. Eddie, Salvador, and Lewis refused to eat it. The next morning, the group stripped the muscle and the organs from the bodies of Antonio, Dolan, Graves, and Murphy. They dried them to store them for days ahead, and taking care to ensure nobody would have to eat his or her relatives. So that's one thing, like, the group made sure that nobody would eat
so thoughtful.
each other's family.
So thoughtful.
You know, morals. Gotta have them, right?
Obviously.
Soon, though, the food would run out, and the group discussed killing the 2 guides, Lewis and Salvador, and they disappeared into the night, either being told by Eddie, hey, they're looking to eat you, or them getting the hint that, hey, they might kill us and eat us. Let's get out of here.
Why would they kill the guides, though? Those are the people who could take you out. Why would you?
Because they were like Native American guys and they didn't know them. Like, they had no personal relationship to them. So they're like,
they're the ones who could take you to the place. The safety. I don't know. Okay.
Anywho, they disappeared into the night. Jay Fostick died during the night, leaving only 7 members of the party.
Okay.
So if you remember, this party set off with 17 members, and now they're down to 7.
All right.
Eddie and Mary Graves left to go hunt, but when they returned with deer meat, because they happened to find a deer, shoot it, and bring it back.
I figured they would want to do that before they ate the humans, but that's just me.
Well, I mean, they were in the middle of a blizzard, so it's kind of hard to hunt.
Yeah, I know.
At the first point that they got a chance to go hunt, they did, and they brought back deer meat, although Fostick's body had already been cut apart for food.
Well.
So,
okay.
After several more days, 25 since they had left Truckee Lake, they came across Salvador and Lewis, who had not eaten for about 9 days and were close to death.
Oh, well.
William Foster shot them, and believing their flesh was the rest of the group's last hope to avoiding imminent death from starvation. But not more than a few days later, the group stumbled into a Native American settlement. The Native Americans hosted them and gave them what they had to eat: acorns, grass, and pine nuts, all while they had Lewis and Salvador in their packs. Isn't that disgusting?
It's so gross.
Like, how can you look those people in the face? Anyhow, after a few days, Eddie continued to the ranch in a small farming town. He quickly told them about the rest of the party, which was now down to 6 members, and the rescuers were able to find them easily, following Eddie's bloody footprints back to them.
Okay.
So their journey from Truckee Lake had taken 33 days.
Wow.
On February 5th, the first relief party of 7 men left Johnson's ranch, and the second, headed by James Reed, back from the war, left 2 days later. So on February 19th, the first party reached the lake, finding what appeared to be a deserted camp. until a ghostly figure of a woman appeared. 12 of the immigrants were dead, and of the 48 remaining, many had gone crazy and were barely clinging to life. The first relief party soon left with 23 refugees, but during the party's travels back to Sutter's Fort, 2 more children died. En route down the mountains, the first relief party met the second relief party coming the opposite way, and the Reed family was reunited after 5 months. And on March 1st, the second relief party finally arrived at the lake, and that's when they discovered, you're gonna say it with me?
No.
More cannibalism.
Oh no.
They found grisly evidence of cannibalism. The next day, they arrived at Alder Creek to find that the Donners had also resorted to cannibalism. On March 3rd, Reed left the camp with 17 of the starving immigrants, but just 2 days later, they were caught in another blizzard.
Oh, come on.
When it cleared, Isaac Donner had died and most of the refugees were too weak to travel. Reed and another rescuer, Hiram Miller, took 3 of the refugees with them, hoping to find food they had stored on the way up. The rest of the pioneers stayed at what would become known as Starved Camp.
Oh, great. Oh.
On March 12th, the third relief, led by William Eddy and William Foster, reached Starved Camp, where Mrs. Graves and her son Franklin had also died. The 3 bodies, including that of Isaac Donner, had been cannibalized.
Now, what do they mean by cannibalized? Like, do I want to know? Like, did they have like bite marks taken out of? You know what I mean? Like
they butchered them and ate them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
On March 14th, they arrived at Alder Creek Camp to find that George Donner was dying from an infection in the hand that he had injured months before. Remember that little cut that he had? Yeah. He was dying now.
We remember that now. Okay.
His wife, Tamzine, though in comparatively good health, just refused to leave him, sending her 3 little girls on without her.
Interesting.
A 4th rescue party set out in late March, but were soon stranded in a blinding snowstorm for several days. On April 17th, the relief party reached the camps to find only Louis Kesselberg alive among the mutilated remains of his former companions.
Jeez.
So, here's the thing. Kesselberg is believed to have just murdered everyone that was left to eat them. And he denied it. But if you want more details, I heavily suggest the last podcast on the left, their episodes on the Donner Party, because they go into detail about Kesselberg and the things he did. And he's fucked up. But
wow.
Kesselberg was the last member of the Donner Party to arrive at Sutter's Fort on April 29th. It took 2 months and 4 relief parties to rescue the entire surviving Donner Party. In the Donner Party tragedy, 2/3 of the men in the party perished, while 2/3 of the women and children lived. 41 individuals died and 46 survived.
It's like a 50-50 shot.
Yeah. In the end, 5 had died before reaching the mountains. 35 perished either at the mountain camps or trying to cross the mountains, and 1 died just after reaching the valley. Many of those who survived lost toes to frostbite, so on and so forth. But yeah, that's basically the Donner Party.
Is that it?
That's
it.
it.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. No, I never heard of that. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Cannibalism. So much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I mean, so here's the thing. People start starving. You kind of assume that they're, I mean, I don't think I could do it. I think I would starve.
Yeah. I mean, like with the whole like forlorn hope, and like last podcast on the left talks about it, like the forlorn hope. I think it was Ben Kissel, one of the hosts of the show. He's like, did they have to resort to cannibalism? And the other one's like, yeah, they probably wouldn't have survived if they hadn't resorted to cannibalism, because they were just so weak and starved and climbing mountains. Like, I don't know.
But then they got that deer, and then I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. That's hard. I don't think I could do it.
I honestly, by the sounds of it, it wasn't like they were rationing very well. Like, because they had, at one point they had 3 dead bodies that they took meat and organs from, and it was gone within a matter of days.
Right. Like, so, but how many people are right?
I don't know. Interesting.
Anyway,
I was thinking about cannibalism.
I was trying to think about like what I needed to eat for dinner, and now that's not something I'm worried about. Nope.
You're welcome.
All right, I want to be telling you about the Panama Canal and the creation of the Panama Canal, because I didn't realize. I mean, I know it's a thing.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how crazy it was to build it.
It's how ships get from the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean.
Yep. I'm going to give you a brief history kind of explaining all that because, you know, just in case those people like me who need the extra visuals. Brief history about the Panama Canal. So the Panama Canal, aka in Spanish it's the Canal de Panama, is a lock-type canal owned and administered by the Republic of Panama that connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans through the narrow Isthmus de Panama. The length of the Panama Canal from shoreline to shoreline is about 40 miles, which is 65 kilometers, and from the deep water in the Atlantic, more specifically the Caribbean Sea, to the deep water in the Pacific is about 50 miles, which is 82 kilometers. So the canal, which was completed in August of 1914, is one of the two most strategic artificial waterways in the world, the other one being the Suez Canal. Ships sailing between the east and west coasts of the United States, which otherwise would be obliged to round Cape Horn in South America, shortened their voyage by about 8,000 nautical miles, which is like 15,000 kilometers, by using the canal. So instead of having to go all the way down. From its opening in 1914 till about 1979, the Panama Canal was controlled solely by the United States, who built it. In 1979, however, control of the canal passed to the Panama Canal Commission, which is a joint agency of the United States and the Republic of Panama, and complete control passed to Panama at noon on December 31st, 1999.
Hold on. Are you telling me America was just like, yeah, that looks like a good spot for us to just build something, whether you like it or not?
No.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay. I can see America
completely
doing that.
Not
like,
completely.
This is ours.
It's
now.
not what happened. Okay. So in passing from the Atlantic to Pacific, vessels enter the approach channel in Lemon Bay, which extends a distance about 7 miles, which is 11 kilometers, to the Gatun Locks. At Gatun, a series of 3 locks lift vessels 85 feet to Gatun Lake. So the locks will slowly lift the boats up to the lake.
Right.
Because of the delicate nature of the original lock mechanisms, only small craft are allowed to pass through the locks unassisted. Larger craft are guided by now electric towing locomotives, which operate on cog tracks on the lock walls and serve to keep the ships centered in the lock. Also, fun fact, there is obviously a size limit. So when this was built, we didn't have the kind of ships that we have today. So certain ships still have to go. Like, they're just too big.
Like an aircraft carrier definitely is not fitting in that.
Correct. Yeah. The lake, formed by Gatun Dam on the Chagres River and supplemented by waters from Alajuele Lake, also Lake Madden, which was formed by Madden Dam, covers an area of 166 square miles. The channel through the lake varies in depth from 46 feet to 85 feet and extends for about 23 miles to Gamboa. So that translated into meters. So the lake varies in depth from about 14 to 26 meters and extends for about 37 kilometers to Gamboa.
Okay.
Galliard Cut begins at Gamboa and passes through the Continental Divide. Again, this is like the map I showed you at the very beginning. It kind of like describes everything.
Yeah.
The locks then lower the vessels 30 feet, which is 9 meters, to Miraflores Lake at an elevation of 52 feet above sea level. So now we're starting to drop the boats back down. Vessels then pass through a channel about 1.2 miles or 2 kilometers long to the 2-step locks at Miraflores, where they are lowered to sea level. The final segment of the canal is a dredged approach passage 7 miles long through which ships pass into the Pacific. Throughout its length, the canal has a minimum bottom width of 500 feet, which is 150 meters. In Gatun Lake, the width of the channel varies between 500 to 1,000, because it's a lake. And the Miraflores Lake, the width is 740 feet. So that's kind of like this is a picture of what it looks like. So where it all started. President Theodore Roosevelt oversaw the realization of a long-term United States goal. He wanted a canal that connected to the two oceans.
He also spent time in North Dakota. Fun fact.
Oh, fun fact. There you go. Throughout the 1800s, American and British leaders and businessmen wanted to ship goods quickly and cheaply between the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. Okay. Construction crews literally had to move mountains in a snake-infested jungle with an average temperature of 80 degrees and 105 inches of rainfall a year.
Yeah, you know what? I would have been like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm going to go work in the mines or something. I don't know about this.
In the wet season, torrential downpours transformed the flood-prone Chagres River into raging rapids and soaked workers.
Jesus.
The quote here, sometimes you didn't see the sun for 2 straight weeks, recalled laborer Rufus Ford. In the morning, you had to put your clothes on damp because there was no sun to dry them.
They got hazardous pay for this, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. In spite of such setbacks, American interest in the canal continued unabated. Because, of course, he had all the rich
America wants what America wants. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not worried about what's actually happening. The Hay-Pauncefote Treaty of 1901 abrogated the earlier Clayton-Bulwer Treaty and licensed the American states to build and manage its own canal. Following heated debate over the location of the proposed canal, on June 19, 1902, the United Senate voted in favor of building the canal through Panama. Within 6 months, Secretary of State John Hay signed a treaty with the Colombian Foreign Minister Tomas Harran to build the new canal. The financial terms were unacceptable to the Colombia's Congress, and it rejected its offer.
Colombia? Thought we were in Panama. Why do you call it a Panama? Because we thought we were in Panama. Sorry.
What is that from?
Sahara.
So President Roosevelt dispatched U.S. warships to Panama City on the Pacific and Colon on the Atlantic in support of the there's so many big words. Panamanian independence.
Panamanian independence. Okay, so Panama was trying to get independence from Colombia. Okay.
Colombian troops were unable to negotiate the jungles of the Darien Strait, and Panama declared independence on November 3rd, 1903.
Good for them.
The newly declared Republic of Panama immediately named Felipe Bonu Varela, a French engineer who had been involved in the earlier de Lesseps Canal attempt, as envoy extraordinaire, and basically just put him in charge. In his new role, he negotiated the Hay-Bonu Varela Treaty of 1903, which provided the United States with a 10-mile wide strip of land for the canal, a one-time $10 million payment to Panama with an annual annuity of $250,000.
Okay, I was going to say they should be getting that bank every year.
Yeah. So basically, when you were like, did we just go down there and make a canal? Kinda, but we helped them gain their independence
by just showing up.
We're here. We got battleships. Behave. And then they negotiated the treaty where we paid a huge lump sum and then an annuity each year for basically renting the strip. Right. Okay. The United States also agreed to guarantee the independence of Panama. So we are, Theodore Roosevelt was the whole like Gary Big Stick guy, right? Pretty sure that was him. It was basically what we were doing. We were like Big Brother, making sure nobody messed with Panama.
Okay.
Completed in 1914, the Panama Canal symbolized U.S. technological prowess and economic power. Although U.S. controlled the canal, eventually became an irritant to the U.S.-Panamanian relations. At the time, it was heralded as a major foreign policy achievement as well. In a quest to fulfill a centuries-old dream to connect the Atlantic to Pacific Ocean, the builders of the Panama Canal quickly learned that the construction of a waterway across a narrow ribbon of land looked easier on a map than in reality. The Panamanian Isthmus provided to be one of the most difficult and deadly spots in the world in which to construct a canal.
Great.
So after they did all this work to get the canal, to get Panama, it ended up being, the builders of the passage attempted to re-engineer the landscape, but nature did not give up without a fight.
So that's something I was going to ask. Were those lakes naturally there, or were they all made?
No,
They're all
they were
made.
dams. So the French attempt. We were not the first country to attempt to create this canal. A French venture started construction of the Panama Canal in 1881. Seeking to duplicate his success leading the construction of the Suez Canal, French diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps found that building a 51-mile sea-level canal through Panama's mountainous jungle would be far more difficult than the 120-mile passage through the flat Egyptian desert. Ceaseless rains triggered mudslides that would bury workers alive. Floods swept away construction equipment. And on top of everything, an earthquake rocked the country and a fire destroyed the city of Cologne when a civil war ignited.
Jesus. Okay.
The quote, "There's too much water. The rocks are exceedingly hard. The soil is very hilly. The climate is deadly. The country is literally poisoned," complained senior French engineer Adolphe Gaudin de Lepny.
I mean, technically they need the water, though. So,
yeah.
Technically. Is that an issue?
Well, it is when it's killing people, I guess.
True.
Outbreaks of diphtheria and epidemics of yellow fever and malaria decimated the workforce. An estimated of 3/4 of the French engineers who joined Lesseps in Panama died within 3 months of arriving.
Why wouldn't they use local workers acclimated to the...
Because that would make sense. 3/4. Well, I mean, so what are you going to do? Go into a foreign country and demand they build the canal for you? Like,
offer money?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't know.
But let me repeat that. 3/4 of the French engineers die within 3 months of arriving.
Yeah.
3/4. 3/4. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Like, a Canadian doctor estimated that between 30 and 40 workers a day died during the wet seasons in 1882 and 1883. And that is by a author, Matthew Parker, that wrote Panama Fever. This is a book.
Sheepers.
Malaria, yellow fever, and other tropical diseases conspired against the de Lesseps campaign. And after 9 years and approximately 20,000 lives, the French attempt went bankrupt.
It took 9 years for them to be like, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't.
You're not going to like this.
20,000 people waste.
Most of the dead hailed from the Caribbean islands such as Antigua, Barbados, and Jamaica. Hey, this is called horrifying history for a reason.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
God.
So
and they didn't even stop because of the deaths. They stopped because they ran out of money.
They went bankrupt.
Like, that's so disgusting. Ew.
I mean, technically, it probably got bankrupt because they were paying people. And they were dying.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyways, did America do any better?
It's our turn. 16 years after the French venture went bankrupt, an ascendant United States restarted the work on the partially excavated ditch, because that's all they were able to do was make a
9
ditch.
years? 9 years. 20,000 people died and all they did was make a ditch? I can do that in a day with a shovel.
All right. Well, okay, it wasn't like a 2-foot ditch. Like, it was, but they didn't do much more than make a ditch. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
The Americans encountered many of the same obstacles as the French in the project's first year, as yellow fever and malaria killed hundreds of workers.
Is it just the area? Is it the air? Is it just...
Well, it's malaria. It's mosquitoes.
Oh.
It's wet.
I hate mosquitoes.
They did too. As death pervaded the canal zone, downtrodden chief engineer John Finley Wallace made plans for his return trip home by importing a metal coffin.
What?
He assumed that
he was gonna die?
Mm-hmm. That's how bad it was. By June 1905, 3/4 of the original American contingent had fled or perished. Wallace followed suit and returned to the United States with his metal coffin, occupied by the corpse of one of his coworkers. So he didn't die, but one of his coworkers had.
I mean, he brought him back, I guess.
Mm-hmm. For centuries, it was thought that the filth, rotting garbage, and airborne bacteria released from the tropical soil caused yellow fever and malaria, which, interesting, malaria is actually derived from the Italian word for bad air.
So I wasn't wrong when I asked if it was in the air.
No. Yellow fever survivor Jorjas was among the doctors who researched pinpoint the role played by mosquitoes in spreading the tropical diseases. Spearheading a massive public health campaign for the canal zone, Jorjas ordered the fumigation of homes, the drainage of pool water, and the attachment of screens to windows and gutters. To smother mosquito larvae, health officials sprayed crude oil mixed with kerosene in water sources and puddles.
I'm sure that went well.
Thanks to those efforts, yellow fever cases on the isthmus were largely eradicated by the end of 1905. Although the case numbers dropped, malaria proved more stubborn. Sanitary Inspector Joseph Leprince estimated that 80% of the workforce was hospitalized at some point during 1906 for malaria. 1 year, 80% of the workforce was hospitalized at some point.
Wow.
Still, Jorjas is credited for saving tens of thousands of lives because what he did do was kill off the mosquitoes. Was it the most environment friendly way? No.
He probably killed off more than the mosquitoes.
He probably did. Yeah, let's just dump crude oil and kerosene in water sources. It'll be fine.
Your topic is covering all of the horrifying history topic.
It'll be fine.
All of that.
Also, my next section is it gets worse. So buckle up.
At least your story doesn't have cannibalism in it.
I'm just kidding. Okay. So, with the yellow fever threat abating, accidents replaced disease as the largest cause of death in the canal zone in 1909. The most dangerous work took place as laborers carved a ditch 45 feet deep and at least 300 feet wide through an 8-mile mountainous stretch known as Culebra Cut. So the ditch isn't like a little ditch. I could dig that in my backyard with a shovel. 45 feet deep and 300 feet wide. So, I mean, it was a big ditch, you know.
I mean, who knows if the French even made it that far? You know what I'm saying?
That
could have been accurate.
No. Right. It'd be fast. Just imagine the U.S. shows up after their first
like
dug
a
ditch.
2-foot ditch.
It's like a trench. What the heck is that? It's like covered over in grass already. Like grass already grew over it. Sorry, we're not making fun of the French. They probably did a great job.
They did their best.
They did
for 9 years and killed many people.
20,000. Who's counting?
Who is?
Nicknamed Hell's Gorge, the Culebra Cut was a cauldron of noise with roaring locomotives and belching steam shovels where risks of death ranged from drowning to electrocution. Workers blasted away at the mountains with upwards of 60 million pounds of dynamite, which could ignite prematurely in the tropical Panamanian climate. Excavating machines also detonated unexploded charges, as was the case in December 1908 accident that killed 23 men. Flooding regularly submerged equipment and the unstable ground could give way at any instance. It's a quote. The work of months or even years might be blotted out by an avalanche of earth. And that was from a senior U.S. administrator. Imagine you're like digging this trench that you've worked so hard on, and then just like a landslide comes and like knocks it and fills it right back in. Like, yep.
Damn.
Particularly for workers partially deafened as a side of drinking quinine, and that was used to ward off malaria. The inability to hear made deadly railroad accidents a regular occurrence. So these people were drinking this medicine to ward off malaria, but it made them partially deaf. So they couldn't hear a train coming.
Oh my God, these poor people.
In an oral history, George Hodges remembered a fellow worker who fell trying to hop on a train, buckle up, and the wheel of another train cut his body right in two as if he had been chopped in half with a machete.
Yikes.
Laborer Antonio Sanchez said work in the cut was like, quote, going into a battlefield. With workers suffering gruesome injuries, some of which required amputation, hospitals in the canal zone resembled those in a war zone.
Jeepers.
So many Panama Canal workers were maimed during the construction that artificial limb makers competed for highly coveted contracts with canal builders.
Stop.
One such manufacturer, A.A. Marks, boasted that its waterproof arms and legs were, quote, most suitable to the climate and conditions of the locality, and the, quote, only kind manufactured that would meet demands, end quote, of the injured workers who had returned to the job on the Panama Canal.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, to wrap it up.
Crazy.
The construction of the canal was completed in 1914, 401 years after Panama was first crossed overland by Europeans in Vasco Núñez de Balboa's party of the conquistadors. The United States spent almost $500 million, that roughly translated today to $13.5 billion.
Wow.
To finish the project. Between 1904 and the end of construction in 1914, the United States recorded deaths of 5,855 canal workers.
Wow.
When combined with the deaths from the French venture, Parker estimated its amount to 500 lives lost for each mile of the canal.
Jeez, that's so insane.
Death could strike in the form of an 18-ton boulder or a minuscule malaria-carrying mosquito that bred by the millions in festering swamps and puddles. So over the span of more than 3 decades, at least 25,000 workers died in the construction of the Panama Canal. I'm going to leave you with a quote. This is not an inspirational quote.
Oh, God.
The working conditions in those days were so horrible it would stagger your imagination, recalled laborer Alfred Doughton. Death was our constant companion. I shall never forget the train loads of dead men being carted away daily, as if they were just like lumber.
What?
And that's the story of the Panama Canal. At least there wasn't cannibalism. I think that should be a shirt.
At least it wasn't cannibalism.
That should be a shirt. At least there wasn't cannibalism.
Oh,
25,000
Lordy.
people died. It was one of those things that shout out Grandpa, because I didn't. It's one of those things that I was like, oh yeah, deadly history. And he was like, the Panama Canal was really bad. I was like, what do you mean?
Wow. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that much. Wow.
And I mean, really comparatively, if you look at it, the French lost like 20,000. We only lost like almost 6.
Yeah.
6,000 lives. Like only 6,000 people. Wild.
There was no cannibalism.
But at least there was no cannibalism.
That we know
of. 5,800 workers died in 10 years. And that's crazy. I did like that and didn't like the statistic. It's a horrible statistic, but around 500 lives were lost for each mile that was built.
Yeah, that's insane.
But yeah, so that's the story of the Panama Canal. It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, so that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do not forget to leave us a comment, like, subscribe, do all the things. If you're watching on YouTube, hi. Yeah, do the subscribe thing.
You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with our username at TTA Podcast. And in the bio of all of our social media is the link for our link tree, which has our email. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let us know.
And if we ended up putting that thing of all of our topics, you guys could see our topics. If you have stories for any of those, hit us up.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty set on true crime. But I mean, if you have a really good true crime and I see it and I want to do it, email us. Do it. Thanks for listening. Next week, we are going to be covering myths and legends, right?
Mm-hmm. Or a mythical creature.
Myth, legends, and or mythical creatures. So
all of it.
Don't have a story for next week.
Neither
so
do I.
to figure it out.
Next week is like 3 days from now. You realize that?
I know. It's like, but also I'm kind of glad I'm getting it out of the way now because I'm starting my job in 2 weeks. So
facts. Get it all out now.
Anyway.
Interesting.
And with that, we're going to leave you with this inspirational quote.
Take your victories, whatever they may be. Cherish them. Use them. But don't settle for them. By Mia Hamm.
I love it. Okay. It's going to be a great day when we're going to come and be completely prepared and not going to mess any of my words up and not be sick. It's going to be a great day.
Whenever that happens.
It'll happen.
Sun will turn blue. If that happens.
The sky will be green. The grass will be red. It'll be a great day. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.